Yo, what is up guys, Karim here, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you guys my 4 reasons I'm still league starting Lightning Arrow despite the nerf. But before we get into it, what was the nerf? Well, Lightning Arrow was one of the builds that made use of Vengeant Cascade, the notable that you could anoint using 2 gold oils and an amber oil, which allowed all projectiles you fire to return back to you. This was a massive boost to clear speed as well as a bit of a boost to single target damage. And this notable here is pretty much being removed. There is a support gem that's coming in its place, but it's a shadow of its former self. So overall, very likely most people won't be using this mechanic any longer. So the reason I'm not overly concerned about the removal of this notable is I've actually league started and had great success with this build before Vengeant Cascade was even in the game in patch 320. And in that patch, there was even less bow power than in 321. So overall, despite what everyone might say, this build is still phenomenal and one of, if not the best league starting build if you're interested in going very fast, playing a bow build, and scaling insanely in terms of currency. Now for those new to Lightning Arrow, it's incredibly simple. You have 2 skills that you use. The first is Lightning Arrow, which is used to clear packs of monsters and does a pretty good job of it. If you ever have a monster which you can't kill though, put your ballistas down, which are artillery ballistas, and they'll rain fire down on enemies to deal big single target damage. So TLDR use Lightning Arrow majority of the time, and then when there's an enemy you can't kill, you put your ballistas down. Now you're going to see a lot of guides on this build, and they're all going to be a little bit different. Most builds use Deadeye as their ascendancy, but Raider is also completely acceptable. There is also some differences in items, but pretty much the entirety of the build is pretty hard to mess up. The only thing you need to worry about is that it's definitely a little on the squishier side, trading defense for speed, so it's definitely a build which is thought to be more of an advanced one for players who know how to play and are familiar with the bow playstyle. Alright, let's get into it. So let me give you guys my 4 reasons I regard this league starter so highly, and then I'll point you in the right direction for all updated info on Lightning Arrow builds. Point number 1 is this build is very much likely going to be excellent at the new league mechanic, and the reason for that is that it has access to artillery ballista totems. Not only that, depending on the variation you're playing, these totems can very much likely put out the majority of your single target damage, meaning you can put them down, dodge around, or do anything else that is required of you in any mechanic you're playing. The reason this is important is the new Trial of the Ancestors League looks like it has Rogue Exile style enemies with massive telegraphed attacks. The cool thing about this is that those types of enemies generally like to go for totems, meaning they won't be attacking and targeting you the whole time. In addition to that, all you need to do to achieve most of your damage is put your totems down and run away, giving you ample time to deal with any unknown mechanics or giving you a lot more time to dodge ones you know are coming. It'll also give you the potential upside of messing around with stuff on the field as well. As a bit of a bonus, this build is likely going to be good for all the new keystones coming as well, specifically the new Expedition one, which will have you blow up remnants all over the place, and even though there's a lot of immunity remnants, this build doesn't care because it does tri-elemental damage in the form of fire, lightning, and cold damage, meaning you can run the new Expedition keystone without too many downsides, a big plus if you're interested in that. It's also likely going to be one of the best league starters for farming beyond if you're interested in going for that keystone, although that might be a little bit more specialized. Point number 2 is that Lightning Arrow is exceptionally fast at clearing all layouts of maps, possibly even one of the fastest league starters out of every league starter, meaning it's a top choice for currency making. The reason this is important is that more maps per hour is more currency per hour. It's as simple as that. Clearing Exarch and Eater of Worlds altars and slaying the boss at the end is the backbone of most currency strategies and a massive part of your earnings. So the faster you can churn through maps, the better, and Lightning Arrow is the king of that playstyle. In addition to that though, it's also fully capable and highly specialized at clearing all of the most profitable endgame league mechanic farms in the game. Now, some of the ones which I consider the strongest are Legion, Delirium Mirrors or Orbs, Expedition, or Blight. Now, overall, Lightning Arrow completely obliterates all of these mechanics in League Start viable gear, meaning it's going to be one of the top picks for choosing between any of these mechanics and being highly profitable. Overall, it's a complete beast at making currency, and it's definitely one I recommend if you've got a bit of experience playing bows, and if you want to play any of these league mechanics at all, or variations on Exarch or Eater of Worlds Altar strategies. Point number 3 is that it's got an absolutely incredible power curve. Lightning Arrow is strong in the early game, mid game, and of course the end game. In the early game, acts 1 to 10, you've got a very strong character on your hands. The only things you need to worry about in order to stay strong is finding the right socket colors, which is just some green sockets on your gear, but fortunately you are a ranger, so those sockets are going to be very easy for you to find, and also upgrading your bow, which also isn't too much of a problem. As long as you're picking up bows along the way or white bases that you can use essences on, it's going to be a completely smooth experience. As one of the easiest league starters I've actually ever played throughout Acts 1 to 10. Now after the acts, the power curve does not slow down though. Once you get to tier 1 maps, you're going to be in for a pleasant surprise. Overall, this build can go from tier 1 maps all the way to Exarch and Eater completely solo self-found. And in Trade League, you can also use Trade to make that even easier. Some players are reporting pretty incredible solo self-found runs with this build. Using the new Wandering Path Atlas passive tree technology, which came out a few leagues ago, people are going from Twilight Strand all the way to Exarch and Eater in roughly 10 hours or less. That's killing both those bosses in 10 hours or less. That's incredible. And that's all in solo self-found, meaning you have even more tools at your disposal in Trade. But it doesn't stop there. After the early game and mid game, the end game is really where bow builds really start to shine. You can push your Lightning Arrow build even further and make it one of the strongest mapping characters in the game, or you can transition it into another phenomenal ranger build like Venom Gyre or Tornado Shot, which are even stronger. Or you can pick another ranger build that you spy on YouTube or PoE Ninja, which takes your fancy. Ranger is one of the strongest endgame ascendancies and classes, so you've got a lot of options there. Point number 4 is this build can take full advantage of all the cheat mechanics in the game, which can help you increase your clear speed dramatically over other builds. A good example of this is the Rampage mechanic. You can easily use on this build by either getting it on gloves like these ones here, Shadows and Dust, or on a belt, Bisco's Leash. Rampage gives you movement speed and increased damage and some special on-kill effects, and this build can easily run either of those items in either of those slots. Now you can also run a different pair of gloves which give Berserk, which is a phenomenal mechanic, and a lot of Lightning Arrow builds actually do use this tech here. Gives you a ton of movement speed, a ton of damage, and a ton of damage mitigation. So overall, these gloves are also phenomenal, and you can run Berserk and Rampage or one or the other. They're both great. You can also run Death Rush to get Adrenaline on this build, which will further multiply all of your speed and damage. Overall, this is a big boost to clear speed and is also phenomenal. Of course, you can also run the signature, very nice jewel inspired learning. There's 2 different positions you can put this jewel on your tree, and both of the positions are pretty decent. You can also run 2 inspired learnings if you so desire. They're basically a mini headhunter, but they're way cheaper and way easier to fit into your build. The first position is here if you path up here, and the second position is here, although people generally put a timeless jewel here instead. But inspired learning is also a massive boost to this build, especially if you're running something like Legion or Delirium. Both of them are great. But of course, this build can fully take advantage of all the Atlas passive cheese that we know and love as well. The first one being packed with energy here. A special note on the tree that whenever you pick up a Sulfite Vein or chest, you'll get a buff, which gives you a ton of movement speed, damage, and max res. In endgame, you definitely put Sulfite Scarabs and this node on every single one of your maps if you can fit the 2 points here, and it is going to make you fly. It's phenomenal, and it multiplies very nicely with everything we've already mentioned. In addition to that, the build also scales phenomenally with shrines, so picking up all the shrine nodes is going to make you go super fast and super damage as well. Pretty much all the shrines are useful to Lightning Arrow, and they're really going to make it far easier to tackle that really tough content way faster and with way less gear. So overall, all these things that you can do and buy and equip to your Lightning Arrow character are going to give you so much free borrowed power that you're going to be smashing through content you have pretty much no business tackling very easily, and it gives you a massive momentum boost and head start over the rest of the economy. Overall, you guys know me. I always play the strongest mapping and blasting League starter I can get my hands on. And the combination of Lightning Arrow with Artillery Ballista, with all of the quality of life and tools GGG have given bows over the last few patches, it's absolutely the strongest mapping and blasting League starter I've ever played over all of my game time. So it's definitely up there, and if you are looking to start a mapper, it's an absolutely great time to do so. I definitely recommend it. There's a ton of guides out there. All my 321 stuff is still fully viable and completely relevant, but if you're looking for cutting edge tech and the most new take on the build, I highly recommend checking out Crouching Tuna's video, which I'll link down below, as well as his max roll guide if you're interested in a full comprehensive written version. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Good luck on your League start, and until next time, cheers.